The port at Antwerp in Belgium, the starting point for the mega transport of a Norwegian giant. The Trapper, world's largest automobile transporter, a ship that takes global vehicle logistics to a whole new level. They are embarking on a journey covering 28,000 kilometers, from Antwerp navigating around Germany, England, France, and Spain, and then out onto the expanse of the Atlantic Ocean. From there, across the pond to ports in the US and Jamaica, through the Panama Canal onto the Pacific, and all the way to New Zealand and Australia. All that in just 50 days. The planning for this mammoth task is all his responsibility. Port Captain Per Henningsen. Here in Antwerp, he needs to board 1,000 cars. But the head planner has just 16 hours for a secure loading process. The Trapper has 14 cargo decks, which are configured into loading zones by the port captain. Each zone represents a port, at which the ship will load and unload vehicles. The concept is, the farther the destination port, the farther back the loading zone. Sounds logical enough. However, there is one small problem. Per has to maximize the use of the area, while at the same time making sure the loading zones are freely accessible. Otherwise, with last-minute changes of plan, there's a risk of the worst-case scenario, which would involve reparking hundreds of cars in a confined space against the clock. They refer to it as shifting. It's extremely time-consuming, and time is the last thing Per has to spare. Only 16 hours for 1,000 cars. With less than 1 minute allowed per car, completing his task without making any mistake is virtually impossible. The most common problems? Last-minute new orders that suddenly increase the number of vehicles, or mistakes in the initial numbers. The result is that there is not enough room in the loading zones. The person responsible for making sure the cars get to their assigned spots is foreman Dimitri Gomerin. He checks the cars in for Port Kembla in Australia and Auckland in New Zealand. Most of the cars are brand new from the factory. Dimitri's job? A permanent balancing act between speed and precision.
Just a little bit more. Enough.
The time pressure is immense, but the space in the zones is limited. Despite this, potential dents are not Dimitri's biggest worry.
What the worst thing is can happen, somebody gets hurt, somebody gets in between, the lashing crew is over here and we don't check each other out.
Throughout the parking process, the lashing crew secures every car with special straps. They attach the straps to lashing hooks or car rims at the front and back of the car and to holes in the deck. This is designed to keep the valuable freight from rocking during the ocean passage, and, in the worst case, coming loose to create a floating motorway pileup. More than half the allotted time has now passed, and the first 2 decks are filling up. But a bit too much, according to the plan from Port Captain Per.
Okay. We loaded for Port Kembla 112 already.
As today or including what they did yesterday?
I don't know, did they load yesterday as well, the Port Kembla?
Yeah.
The problem? A last-minute order for a delivery to Port Kembla, Australia. But the loading zone for that is already full. And the cargo for Auckland, New Zealand is ready to be parked. Port Captain Per has to improvise while keeping one eye on the clock.
Maybe you can just leave it open for the time being. You finish Port Kembla.
Yes, like always, yes.
And then you go down.
And then I fill up with the Auckland, or...
Fill up that with Auckland.
Yes.
And then eventually when you need, you go upstairs.
Oh, for the balance.
Yes.
You want the balance over here?
Yes.
Okay, no problem.
The Trapper has an enormous total load capacity of 21,000 tons. Höegh has to keep the weight of the cargo evenly distributed at all times so that the ship does not tip. It's a mega challenge, especially when it comes to last-minute changes. Höegh redistributes the cars on the spot. The new ones for Port Kembla are going to fill up the zone for Auckland. He spreads the spaces that were lost across 3 other decks. High-pressure work for Foreman Dimitri and his team of stevedores. 150 cars suddenly need a new parking place. Time to go before the planned departure? Just 3 hours. But things look good.
Okay.
1,000 cars are in their proper positions, even 1 hour ahead of schedule. Station 1 of the mega transport finished, but there's still 2 months and a whole lot of work to do until they reach their final destination. Until now, only the uppermost 2 decks of the gigantic transporter have been loaded. Some decks remain sparsely occupied, while others are completely empty and waiting for their cargoes at upcoming ports. Next stop, Bremerhaven. Port Captain Höegh is already starting to prepare for the loading process there, because in Bremerhaven, he expects more than simple cars.
This cargo is shifted from deck number 8 to be able to load trucks.
The largest vehicle transporter in the world doesn't just carry automobiles. It also hauls all sorts of high and heavy cargo. This is only possible due to the Trapper's special flexible decks, whose height can be adjusted in order to accommodate some pretty monstrous machinery. The next morning, the crew prepares for departure on the bridge. Just one last technical step remains, raising the huge ramp.
Is everybody ready? Let's go.
Starting time for the mega transport's trip around the globe. The Trapper has to make it to Australia and New Zealand in just 49 days. Along for the ride, thousands of cars, but the biggest cargo of them all has yet to be loaded. The ship travels through the inland waters of Belgium in the direction of the North Sea. Then, 500 kilometers along the coast of Holland and Germany to Bremerhaven. Day 4, arrival in Bremerhaven, the biggest parking lot in the world. Over an area of 240 hectares, there's room for 95,000 cars. Bremerhaven is considered the most important trade hub for automobiles in Europe. The port handles 2.2 million vehicles every year. 2,000 of those are now going on a journey around the world. For our mega transport, that's child's play, because the other things waiting here include tractors, giant construction machines, and trucks. In short, this cargo is hard to work, high and heavy, a triple whammy for Höegh. And yet, there's again just 16 hours to complete the job. The fact that any oversized colossus can even think about taking a ride on the Trapper is based on 2 factors. First, the 12-meter wide and 6.5-meter high loading hatch. Second, the ramp. Load-bearing capacity 375 tons, the weight of 75 full-grown elephants. The additionally heightened high and heavy area is just behind the gate. even the largest machinery can pass through unscathed. What's more, 5 of the 14 decks are movable and can be adjusted in height. Not to mention their respective ramps. The result? A total of 18,195 square meters of space for high and heavy cargo. And that's exactly what's happening on Deck 8. Whenever there are technical adjustments to be made to the cargo area, everything responds to his command. Chief Officer Wang Chongwen. His job, to make sure that several large trucks can fit in here. In just a few minutes, the cargo height practically doubles, and all that without any complicated technology. Wang and his crew push up each of the deck panels using a simple hoist. After just 1 hour, the entire deck is almost twice as high as it was before. In this case, to accommodate commercial trucks. The concept is that, as in Antwerp, stevedores drive each of the 100 trucks to its planned space. Fasten down, and done. After about 8 hours, the last square meter of the deck is full. Our head planter pair is still calmly waiting for his mysterious cargo. Supposedly a 7.5 meter wide unit on a long trailer. But that's all he knows about it. And that's not the only thing testing his nerve.
Most of the time the problem is the height. That actually the measurement is not correct.
The result of having the wrong dimensions? Seriously sobering. The high and heavy area is completely full up, and the adjustable panels of the cargo deck above already raised to the absolute maximum. Per has just 2 hours left until the Trapper's planned departure from Bremerhaven. But right now, all he can do is wait. A long, unnerving wait. But then...
It is big.
Talk about big. The cargo, the bucket of an enormous dump truck. Per's initial irritation has now developed into real worry. It's totally unclear as to whether the unit will even fit on the deck at all, especially given its height. Raising the cargo area is highly problematic because, at the moment, the decks above it are all full.
The worst case scenario, you would have to discharge maybe 200-300 cars to be able to lift the pedal.
It would be a monumental effort, which is no longer achievable. At least not in the time they have left, which is about an hour before the mega transport's scheduled departure. Mission accomplished. The height is not a problem. Even the length and width fit exactly into position. Head planter pair breathes a sigh of relief.
Finally. This is good. This is what you've been waiting for the whole day, huh? So it's really nice. You know that it will fit. And I have loaded so many of these things, but still it is the heart is running.
And that, even after 30 years of experience on the job. In just one day, Per and his stevedores have loaded 2,000 new vehicles, plus 200 high and heavy units. But the longest and heaviest part of the mega transport is yet to come.